Appreciate it. All right, guys. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Everybody's good? All right. Well, it's good to be here. It's been a long time since I've actually presented anything in anywhere in LA area. Thank you. No, you're fine. That was perfect. Okay, so like Ed said, I've been involved with this business for quite a while, but what I'm here to talk to you about tonight is an opportunity, and I want to kind of address it. This is my family. We live in Las Vegas, and we're in kind of a unique situation, right? I mean, there's a lot of different things that we could be doing, and there's a lot of things that you guys could be doing. I mean, it's a Tuesday night. There's, NBA playoffs are going on. There's just a lot of different things that are happening. And the fact of the matter is, you're here tonight. Most of you are here because you want to learn about an opportunity and something that's different. That's what I saw when I initially saw this business. But I want your permission to really talk about it from a business perspective tonight. And I want to use this to kind of set the stage. Okay? How many of you guys have ever seen Robert Kiyosaki's Cash Flow Quadrant? Right? Or I guess it's not really his, but he made it famous, right? And every one of us fall into one of these categories. We're either, employees, or, we get tired of trading time for money, so kind of the next progression is you become self-employed. Most people in here, would agree if you're self-employed, really what you bought yourself is a longer job or a tougher job, because you're the first in, the last to leave, the last to get paid, but you have you've got the upside of leverage, but you also have all of the risk, right? And then you've got, the business owner, something that has a system that has the ability to leverage yourself. This is what I want to talk about tonight, is this from a business perspective. I personally look at this opportunity as the ability to leverage or create leverage in your life without any of the downside risk. Okay? How many of you guys own your own business? I guess to get a little understanding of, which is, you get into it because there's an exit strategy, right? That's better than a retirement or something like that, but you can either sell it, you can will it, you can pass it on, but there's a strategy on what you're trying to do. Okay? You're trying to create leverage for yourself so your income isn't all dependent upon you, right? I mean, I've got 2 older daughters that have had jobs. And those conversations, when you have jobs, when your kids start working, completely different conversations, because now all of a sudden they see life differently. That trading time for money and understanding, okay, wait a minute, I want to buy lunch and I'm going to work an hour to pay for that lunch, or just little things, right? Or the first time they get their paycheck and they're like, wait a minute, I thought I made this, I thought I made $18-20 an hour, and what's why are they pulling out Social Security, and what's Medicare, and what are all of these taxes that I've got to pay? And they start looking at it differently. Creates really good ways for us. How's it going? Really good ways for us to be able to talk about it. And then whether it's whatever you start looking at. For me, I always knew that I wanted to own and operate my own business. And when I was 16. I remember telling, my teacher at school, this is what I was going to do. I was taking a business class, but every time they asked, well, what is that business going to be? I had no idea what it was. Then I ended up going to college, and I majored in entrepreneurship. And I was taking entrepreneurship classes, and I remember telling my grandpa, I want to be an entrepreneur. He's like, then drop out and just do it, And I was like, okay, But that was his immediate response was, well, then just drop out. You're going to learn more by doing than you are going to be by studying it. I didn't quite follow that example. I did end up dropping out, but it was a couple years after starting this. And the reason being is because no matter what I've done in life, no matter what investments I've kind of gone into, for me, it's mostly been real estate. And done well on some, lost my shirt on others. had good rental properties, had bad ones, had good land deals, had bad ones, kind of all of the mix. But every single time I left the title company and signed my name on it, I never felt great. You guys, you ever felt that, right? You leave it and it's like, man, I just signed this personal guarantee for all this money, and it's gonna go good. It's gonna go good, right? But then there's that sinking feeling in your stomach of like, well, what if it doesn't? What if it doesn't go exactly as planned? And you got to have strategies that go along with that. And it's great. I'm not taking anything away from that. But what I do want to show you is the ability that we have to leverage ourselves with this opportunity in the form of customers. This is a subscription-based customer model. And if you look on Wall Street and everything else, those models trade at really high multiples because they're really consistent. They're really standard. They're actual numbers that you can count on, you can rely on. And I'm going to talk to you tonight about what that has meant for me in my business over the last 23 years and how that has worked. But ultimately, the fact of the matter is that this little device I just pulled out of my pocket, this allows us to create leverage with zero risk. We're going to sell these for $350, $400, somewhere between $300 and $400. That's the risk. That's it. And yet, every single time somebody scans somebody in the world, they will have the opportunity to put them on product, and you can get remunerated for it. It can't swing negative against you, right? The only ability that this device has is to help you move forward. And that could be small or that could be really big. And we're going to talk about both of those ways tonight. Is that fair? So as we go through this, I want to talk to you guys about what is the market demand, what's the company that's backing it, who are we as a company, and then what is the solution, and then compensation. If you're looking at this as an entrepreneur, it doesn't matter what widget it is. To me, it matters on what is the return on my time and investment, or my time, particularly my time. But that's the biggest thing is I want a return on that. And then timing. Why would I be looking at this today versus a year from now versus 5 years from now? Why is right now the time that we want to get going with it? So I want to kind of set the stage. First off, modern medicine has really made it so that every one of us can live longer. But the question is, are we living better? That, to me, that's the biggest thing. I am a believer that we can live really just about as long as we want to nowadays. We can live for quite a long time, but I think the body is made to go out like a light bulb and just be done. And yet too often it starts to go out like a dimmer switch, right? And that to me is my biggest fear. I don't want to be 60 years old and it's like, you can't do that anymore. Now I'm 70, it's like, you slow down even more. And it's just every time I hit a milestone, it's just this dimmer switch that gets turned off a little bit more. And then that's what this is. It's that gap. And the fact is, the gap is widening. It's not getting closer. When modern medicine can get us to live longer, what is it that we're doing and why are we doing it poorly that gap of our health span is getting wider? And everybody in here, I honestly believe, we walked around and started talking about it. The fact of the matter is we all have different ideas. We've all got different plans. We all have different beliefs on how to live better, how to look, feel, and live better longer. We all have different varying degrees of ideas with that. This is kind of the basis. And I think far too often we skip over this and we start worrying about little things, and we stop worrying about what is the nucleus of the problem. And a lot of it comes down to this free radical damage. So, and I just explain it like this with this apple. If we're going to take this apple, and particularly the women in the room, if you are going to host a party tonight and you're going to have people over, you want to get ready for the party before you get yourselves ready, right? So you cut up the fruit, You cut the apple, you put it out on a tray, and what do you put on it so the apples don't look brown by the time your friends come?
Lemon.
Lemon. Why does everybody always know that? It doesn't matter where I'm at, everyone always knows that. Okay? I never knew that. So I said particularly the women in the room. I never had any idea, then I told my mom, she's like, I've done that your whole life. Why? Why? But why do you do that?
Prevents oxidation.
How?
By interacting with the
Simple. Vitamin C. It's vitamin C. You have an antioxidant in lemon juice, you put it over it, and it coats the fruit and protects it the same way the skin does. Why is the skin of the apple a color? Because that's where the antioxidants are. The nutrients that are protecting the fruit are around the outside. And as soon as you cut it open, now it's introduced to oxygen and it starts to rust. So if you don't have enough antioxidants in your body starts to rust from the inside out. And that interaction between free radicals and antioxidants, you're either winning it or you're losing it. And if you're losing it, you are oxidizing from the inside out, and that is the nucleus of every chronic illness that you know of. Every one of them. They all start with that. Whether that is cancer, heart disease, osteoporosis, age-related macular degeneration of your eye, inflammation, chronic inflammation, type 2 diabetes. All of this is, the nucleus of it is the interaction between free radicals and antioxidants. Does that make sense? Okay? Right now, everybody's talking about biohacking, right? You guys have all heard of this.
Yeah. No.
Okay? Biohacking is pretty basic. What it comes down to is making an incremental change and compounding it over time. Doing it over and over and over again. Unless you're on social media, and then it is just cold plunged in sauna. And that's what it is, right? I mean, that's what, the biohacking experts, they all do because they can sell those. Those are things they can sell. But at the end of the day, all we're trying to do is make incremental changes and put them together over and over and over again. And that becomes the key. Now you start to look at this. How many of you guys have a scale in your home? How many of you guys use it every day, or at least once a week? Okay? How many of you guys think it's the best biomarker you have in your home? And yet, we all use it, right? Why is it we all use it? I mean, by the world standards, when it comes to this, you go from scale, then it immediately goes into BMI, right? And by BMI standards, I'm obese. If you take my weight and my height, I'm obese, which means BMI is just kind of garbage, right? But we all know kind of roughly where our BMI is. It just doesn't make any sense. We all watch the scale. We love it, right? Everybody loves to step on the scale, and yet we do it every day, right? Don't you guys love getting that feedback, the positive feedback every day, right? It's just great. Like Kelly was telling me earlier, he's a stealth 290. I mean, it's just kind of where it's at. But right now, remember, we're having a business discussion, okay? We're going to look at this from a business. Look at every one of these biomarkers. Every one of them have created markets, multi-billion-dollar markets. I mean, it's the same thing. If I was Gary's doctor and Gary walks in and I say, Gary, you just look like you have high cholesterol. You should be taking the statin. Would he take it? No, he'd laugh at me, or he'd be like, okay, I'm in the wrong office. This doctor's an idiot, right? And yet the ability to measure cholesterol created a $20 billion market annually. And what is what's the percentage of the population that actually affects? It's like 20% of 45 and above. That's the market for cholesterol. It's not a big market. And yet you look at every one of these things, they all have created these markets, except for you go into the supplementation market. Look at this, $300 billion globally, $60 billion in the United States, and no one knows if it works. Nobody has any idea. That's the opportunity. Guys, I could end my presentation with this slide, in my opinion. The whole thing. It's a real estate play. The entire thing that we're here for right now is how many of these devices can you have that you get paid on when they scan people? Because the low-hanging fruit is legitimizing the supplementation world. That's the whole thing. And we'll talk about why we haven't done that yet, because it's pretty basic. You cannot legitimize a $300 billion market with 5,000 devices. Can't be done. That's why we haven't done it yet. And yet now we took it from that white device in the back there that weighs 3.5 pounds, and there's only 5,000 of them in the world. And by this time next year, we could have 25 to 40,000 of these. By the end of next year, the goal is 100,000. At what point does this become ubiquitous, where every single person who is consuming nutritional supplementation, this market right here, knows that to be legitimate, they need to know if it's being absorbed by their body, and so they get scanned by this device. And if you are selling another supplement, how many times do your customers get scanned by one of our devices before they switch to the only company that can guarantee that their product will work, or will give them 100% of their money back? Personally believe, I don't think we get 100% of the market. That's not the goal. I think, but I do think 5 to 10% of the market really cares enough about what they're doing that they will migrate to the only company that can prove it. That's the opportunity. We get enough of these and we legitimize that. The fact is, guys, 3 out of every 4 adults in the United States say they consume a nutritional supplement regularly. And yet every single one of us have been in this aisle. Is that picture? I mean, every one of us can picture ourselves in that aisle, right? And then somebody else shows up in the aisle, because if you're like me, I'd like staring at it and kind of looking, and then someone else shows in it. It's like, well, I better know what I'm doing, so I can grab a bottle. I'm gonna take a look, and I'll grab this other bottle. I'm just waiting for them to move, because I don't know what I'm looking at. I've been selling this stuff for over 20 years, and can you read the difference between all the labels? Do you know which one's synthetic, which one's natural? At the end of the day, I'm buying it off of price and whichever label I think looks more professional. That's it. Like, that's all I got. That's the $300 billion industry right there in a nutshell. And we've all been there. The fact is, you deserve to know. You deserve to know what it is that your supplements are doing for you, for your family, for your children. And I just look at it, simple economics. Okay? How many of you guys remember the first cell phone that you got? Okay? If it was like me, it was the free one on the wall. Right? You walked into AT&T or wherever, and you're like, I want the free one. They're like, well, I got this one over here for $100. No, I want the free one. And then I'll sign your contract for whatever else. When did it change? When I knew I needed it. When I knew that cell phone would manage my entire life, would do everything. That I run my entire business in over 30 countries around the world off of this and my laptop, that's when I'm willing to pay $1,000 a year for this. That's when it shifted. Until then, it was free, right? And then you paid for the service, and you had to pay for your texts and all that kind of stuff, right? You guys remember those days? How many minutes you had, right? And that was great when you went over your minutes.
Blackberries.
Yeah, all of that. Yeah, Blackberry. You know, they died a miserable death.
Yeah.
You know, but you start to look at that, guys. That is a law of economics. That whenever you start anything, you start whatever is cheapest or most convenient. And then as soon as you find value in it, you will upgrade. And you will continue to upgrade to what you think is the best. That's just how it's economics. Think about it in any life. Think about it when you buy your laptop. Why when I could buy a Dell laptop for like $400, do I pay $3,000 for this one? Is it that much better? Well, yeah, but the fact is, no, it's just more convenient now. My entire life runs on Apple, so it's just more convenient, right? And it just migrated to the best, and they charge you a premium for that, which we all gladly pay, and make them one of the most profitable companies in the world. Dell went the route of, we're just going to put a ton of them out there and do it cheap, right? And they've struggled. this is a game changer. This absolutely changes everything, and it was envisioned by this company. And here's a few facts I want you guys to understand about this company. They've been around for 40 years. Next month will be 41. So they started in 1984. They're the number one of the device system sales companies in the world, right? And they've got a lot of skincare devices, a lot of other things. Here's a couple of things though. Of the 40 years we've been in business, 21 of them we've done over $1 billion in revenue. And this is a typo, so forgive me, but it's $20 billion, not 21, but $20 billion we have paid in commissions. Over 1,500 people, we're knocking on the door of 1,600 people, have made more than $1 million with this company. To me, that's about legacy. Because for most people, this is part-time, supplemental, what they're just, trying to do along with it that has created that legacy for them. There are a few companies that have gone out of their way and figured out ways to make almost 1,600 people $1 million. To have over 40, I think the number's 40 to 45 that have made more than $20 million. Like those are real life-changing things. And the fact is, we try to do it right. We try to put our money where our mouth is. We've done it in over 45 markets in countries around the world. We will open up India later this year, which, guys, if you really understand, just the law of geometric growth and the law of numbers, India in and of itself could be a larger market than all of the 45 combined if you do it right. It'll be massive. It'll be a huge potential. But the company is based in science, and they're a product-first company. They have, from the very beginning, they've been product first. Then we've got this marketing plan on the back end. And because of that, we can create real customers. Because of that, 73% of all of our product that ships from our warehouse in Provo, Utah, ships to someone who does not receive a paycheck from the company. What's the average in this industry? The average is like 2%. It's less than 5% for sure. So why are we so different? Because at the end of the day, what we're looking at is products that really do make a difference. Products that change people, quantifiable research, so that we can go through and we can talk about real solutions. We can talk about real answers for people in all of these different areas. Because we know that as humans, we have different needs. And so if we can come up with specific targeted solutions for these different needs, then it will attract different people. It'll work with different people. And then you've got this device that has gone through an evolutionary period. Guys, I've been around longer than most, really longer, outside of Shumi, longer than in this company, longer than anybody else. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay, the first time I got scanned 23 years ago, the scanner was 4 feet by 5 feet. It was like the size of half of a ping pong table. And it had a laser about that long, and it had this tube going up from the top of it, up through a tile roof like this that had a fan blowing down on it to keep it at the right temperature. And there was this guy, I remember walking into this room where it was at, and there's this guy with this white lab coat, and he's turning these dials and stuff, and I have to hold my hand there for 3 minutes to get scanned. And I get a score, and I score 14,000, which is an F. It's a terrible score. Okay? It's the same as someone who smokes a pack a day. And guys, here's the thing. I was going to college. I was in, probably outside of maybe like high school wrestling season, I was in the best shape of my life. I was going to college, but it was summer, and my only class was racquetball. I played soccer every day. I went to the gym every day. But guess what? I also didn't take any nutritional supplements, and I didn't eat any fruits or vegetables. And that's what the scientist told me. Because I got that score of 14,000, I was like, sweet, that's awesome. And I started walking out of the room, and he goes, that's terrible. And I was like, dude, I don't know what you're talking about. I never even heard the word antioxidant before. I didn't know what they were. But I was trying to like act cool, like I'll just fake it till I make it kind of thing. And he's like, no, that's a terrible score. And I said, okay, you have to explain to me why. And he said, it means you do not eat any fruits and vegetables. You don't take a nutritional supplement. And if you do, it does not work. And I was like, okay, well, how do you know that? 3 minutes, how did you know that about me? Because that's true. Like, the only thing I cared about was protein and carbs. That's the only thing I looked at. Other than that, I was the guy that like bought apples or oranges or whatever, put them in my fridge just in case my mom showed up at the apartment, right? And then they go bad and I throw them away and I buy some more. Like, anytime I thought she was coming, there were vegetables in the fridge. You know, if she wasn't coming, there weren't. But I never ate them. Definitely didn't cook them. You know, so I mean, but that scanner all of a sudden validated everything my mom had told me my whole life. And I bought into it. Here's the long and short of it. What I bought into the fact that this was a monopoly in the form of technology, that no one else could do this. And I thought, okay, no one else is giving me an opportunity that is a monopoly type, you know, monopolistic type opportunity. I can learn the rest. I can learn about supplementation. I can learn about nutrition. I can learn about how to build a business. But no one else is giving me that type of opportunity. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Excuse me. And so a few months later, they came out with this version on the left. They call it the S1. Sat in like this trombone case. It weighed like 30 pounds. You know, you drag it around. Guys, I carried that thing. I remember going to Mexico with it. I went to Europe with it. Oh, it was all over the place. And it was amazing. Absolute miracle that they were able to take it and they went from the size of half a ping pong table to that in a matter of months. But it had its limitations. To be accurate, it had to be between 70 and 74 degrees. With humidity about 72. Outside of that, you couldn't guarantee the accuracy. Okay? We had to grow and harvest our own crystals to put in the laser to make that work. But it scanned people in a minute and a half. And then a few years later, they came out with this one, we call it the S2. And now all of a sudden it scanned people in a minute, and they got it to where it could internally calibrate in 5 minutes. So it was like, man, this is another miracle. This one took 40 minutes to calibrate. Now we're down to 5. But it still had to be plugged into a wall. You still had to connect it to a laptop. You know, so it had its limitations still. And then we got this version that Ed's got in the back there that's battery operated, Bluetooth connected to your iPad or iPhone, can scan people in 30 seconds, weighs 3.5 pounds, and now you can move it room to room, chair to chair. You can scan people anywhere in the world that you want. I've scanned people on a plane. I've scanned people sitting in Starbucks. I've scanned people in, you know, hundreds of doctors' offices. And all of a sudden it was legitimate. And along the way, as they did this, oh yeah, they published, or other people published, there's 110 published peer-reviewed clinicals that prove that that device is more accurate than blood serum testing. It's more reliable than blood serum testing. Why? Because there's less room for human error. And it's all been calibrated, it's been validated. You know, you start to look at that, and it just keeps getting better. And I honestly remember meeting with the company, you know, starting probably 8 years ago. It was like, we just need more of those. I don't need new ones. This works great. And in my mind, I'm not a creative person. I'm a numbers guy. And I look at, in my mind, you couldn't make it better than that. And then last July, we'd been looking at all these different forms. We had 3D models and all these different things that we printed out with the company. And then all of a sudden, and they were about, you know, this big, you know, and we looked at ones that scanned your palm, ones that scanned your finger, and it was like, man, if you could scan your finger, that would be amazing, you know, just because it's so much easier, right? It's intuitive. You walk up and it's like, oh, I know what to do with that. You walk up with that one, it's like, okay, where do I put a hand, right? You don't know what you're doing until somebody places it there. And so we're doing this, and then I get called into Steve Hatchett's office, and they pulled that device out, and they pulled, you know, a less cool looking version of this out and put it on the table, and it's like, no way. What is that? Like, how did you do that? Now all these questions start coming up, and you start looking at this. And I get scanned last July, and it's like, I mean, I just start getting excited. It's like, can you really do that? Because here's the difference, guys. This changes the cost structure entirely, right? Kit, we were talking today about a lot of different businesses, right? You know, in real estate, it's all about location, right?
Yeah.
It's also about the price. So it's where you buy it, what you buy it for, what'd you pay it for, right? That device back there, my team right now controls about 40% of them globally, about 90% in the United States. But it's still, this answers 4 of the 5 biggest hurdles or obstacles that people have to look at, because that one still has a $140 a month lease because it costs the company about 10 grand to make it. And so they've got to figure out a way to get it back, you know, over time in a model that will work for everybody. This, I already said, we're going to sell for $300 to $400. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but most people in this room, you don't even have to talk to your spouse to make that type of purchase. Okay? Or in my case, I have to talk to mine, but she wouldn't have to talk to me. Okay? It works for us. You know?
I saved you money.
Yeah. But I saved you so much money by spending it. Exactly. But do you guys understand? Like, it changes the objections. It changes how many we can put out there, how many the company can produce. And that changes everything that we're looking at. Now, why does this work? Because it isn't just the patents. When you start getting something to this size, I'm telling you right now, a patent is only as good as the company backing it, the money backing it. The smaller you make this, the bigger the companies are that are going to go after the same market. But here's the deal. We've scanned 15 million people 26 million times over the last 20 years. So yes, we have dozens of patents that back this both nationally and internationally. But more importantly than that is we have the largest nutritional database in the entire world. We have data on all of these scans. And now all of a sudden you introduce machine learning and AI, and you have the ability to create an algorithm. And that algorithm is what makes this cost effective. That algorithm is what makes it work. Is Google the only search engine, I guess pre-ChatGPT, right? Is Google the only search engine out there? No. But for the last 30 years or whatever it is, they've had the best algorithm. That's the difference between them and Bing, you know, or Yahoo or any of these other search engines, is Google's had the best algorithm, the most accurate. And so we have the ability to make this cheaper than anybody, but it's now using 234,000 light arrays in there, which yes, means we will be able to measure more things than just antioxidants eventually. We've already filed patents to measure another 25 to 30 different things. But if you're shining 240,000 light arrays into your finger, how do you know what colors are coming back and what those mean if you don't have an algorithm? And the answer is you don't. Other companies have tried to figure this out, and because they don't have the database and the algorithm, they can't figure out what the score means, and it fluctuates and it changes and everything else. We just came out with a 30, 60, and a 90-day study between this and your blood serum levels, plus or minus 1%. A 90-day study of blood serum versus this score, and this is plus or minus 1%. That one back there is 5%. You guys realize, and people look like, well, it shouldn't vary at all. It's like, are you kidding me? We're measuring nutrients with light. You know? Do you guys realize in the exact same test tube of blood, your cholesterol score can fluctuate 25%? In the same test tube. We're 1%. With that, we can legitimize nutrition. We can legitimize supplementation. I mean, I'm showing you one of 10 units in the entire world right now. That's it. You are at the brink of something that really is pretty darn monumental. Now here's the deal. Every one of these products are guaranteed to increase your score. So I said before, this is about, and yeah, we've got studies, all that kind of stuff. I missed this slide, but the fact is, that study is a 10-year clinical done by Yale. They published 2 outcomes. They said, number 1, this device was the best way to measure fruit and vegetable intake in the human body non-invasively. And number 2, they said it was the best way to affect behavioral change. How many of you guys are healthcare providers in here? Do we have any in here? Okay. As a healthcare provider, if you could change 1 or 2 behaviors of your patients, would it change outcomes? Absolutely. Is it like the most difficult thing for you to possibly do in a 10 to 15 minute visit once to 6 times a year to change their behavior? Like it's too difficult to even expect that to happen. But if you can give somebody a number, and now all of a sudden my 7-year-old son knows what food he needs to eat and what supplements he needs to take to get a blue score, and that's the extent of his knowledge. But that's good enough to help him make better decisions. And as a parent, any way I can get my kids to eat a little bit better and have a little bit better decisions, I'm all for it. I'm in. Right? Because my mom lost that battle, right? I was 14,000, she lost that battle. Just so you know, I'm now about 90,000, 92,000 over the last time I got scored. So it's gotten better. Okay? But here's the deal. Okay? Most people look at this slide and this is what they think. I'm going to scan it first, I'll get on product for 2 months, and we're going to guarantee your score improves. And if it doesn't improve, we'll give you 100% of your money back. Right? Pretty simple. We're here talking about a business opportunity, right? So let me use this slide to tell you what this has meant for my business over the last 23 years. Okay? When our scanners, when I scan someone or someone on my team scans someone and they decide to get on product, 50% of them are still on here, 50% of them stop. It's life. But those that we rescan, the 50% that we get rescanned that see their score improve, if they reorder on month 3, we retain those customers 75 to 80% year over year. It's clockwork. What has that done for me? I've got a business out that pays me out of 30 countries around the world, and 88% of it is on a subscription. Which means my check is not dependent upon me. It's just on a subscription. It's just renewing. And it's renewing with people who just buy the product. They don't care what money they're making from the opportunity. They're buying product because the product is helping them be healthier. And we're proving it to them. And my customers, on average, spend $156 a month. And I'm sorry, that's a business model I can take to anyone. I don't care who they are. I don't care what their background is. That model makes sense. Now it's just a matter of numbers. How many of these can I get out there that scan a few people a day? That's what I've been working towards. That's what I'm so excited about, is the opportunity ahead of us to place these. To go from 5,000 to 25,000 in the next year. To get to 100,000 of these devices by the end of next year. And again, kid, this is a real estate play. You understand that. Rental properties, okay? Legal from our company would not like me saying this, so don't post that online. You people that keep filming me, okay? But here's the deal. That's how I look at it. That is 100% how I look at this. I remember 23 years ago when Nathan Ricks, who was a mentor of mine, he sat in a meeting and he said, there will be a day when you, how many of you guys got, anybody got a life pack on them? If not, I've got one in here, but. So, he said, there will be a day when you're sitting in a restaurant and you look over and somebody pulls out one of these packets. And you're gonna look at it and be like, I got paid on that. Or you're gonna look at that and be like, that guy said this would happen. And you're gonna want to hurt yourself because you didn't do it. Like that's as clear as I can explain what I think is gonna happen. Because it just makes sense. The market is already there. The market is massive. Do you guys realize that pre-pandemic supplementation in this country was $35 billion a year, and today in 2024 it was 60? If there's anything that the pandemic did of value, is it taught the masses of people that you have to do something for prevention of your own health. You got to take it in your own hands, because before it was as long as I've got good insurance, my doctor will take care of me. And then the pandemic hit and it was like, oh, wait a minute, there are things they can't take care of. If I have these extra comorbidities, I'm in trouble, right? I mean, we all lived it, we all saw it, and I know I'm oversimplifying it, but the fact is it basically came down to that. If you were healthy and had no comorbidities, pandemic was nothing. But the more you had of extra problems that were preventable beforehand, the more difficult COVID became. And so now all of a sudden everybody started looking at saying, well, what can I do to prevent this? What can I do? And so they started looking for supplements. And they started trying to figure that out, and that market just exploded. And they started looking at it. Okay? This slide, this is published numbers by our company. We're publicly traded, so this is audited by the SEC. But here's the deal. When I was sitting in your seat for the very first time and I saw these numbers, my eyes went to that number. That was the only one I remembered. It's the only one I looked at. And the first thought that came to my head was, yeah, but how many people are there? 4? Right? Because that's kind of, it's network marketing, guys. Like, there's only 4 people at the top that are making any money. Right? That's the number, that is the average of over 1,100 people last year in over 45 countries around the world. It's not just in the United States. It takes into account Argentina or mainland China or Australia or Europe or Indonesia, all of it. And if you hit this position of brand representative, your chances of making it all the way to the top are 3.29%. Now think of any company you're working for right now. What are your chances of being at the top? My guess is it's less than 3%. Right? Because there's not 1,100 people there. It's different. Now here's a couple things. If you hit this position and you hold it for 10 years, your chances of getting here are over 90%. And I looked at that, guys, and I just thought, I don't have to be 1 in 4. I could be 1 in 1,100. And at 22 years old, it was like, I could do that. I don't ever want to be the guy that's got to be the first. I have to be the best, right? I want to be the best, but I don't have to be as different, right? And if you tell me, for me to make that type of money, I have to be the best or the first to do it, I'm out, right? That's not going to work, because I just don't think that's it. But there are so many other ways you can do this. And then you look around the room and you look around this company and you're like, wait a minute, there are thousands that have done this before me. I just gotta be one of them. And that gave me a ton of confidence at 22 to be like, all right, I can be one of them. I can figure this out. And then we follow a system, we make this work. This is how I look at this. If I can get 10 of these devices and every one of them gets 10 customers, if I were to give you guys this device, could you get 10 customers? Okay, I've been traveling around the country. I've never had one person be like, nah, couldn't do it. You know, they're all like, yes, I could do that. With that device, I could. I don't care if we have to like walk around our neighborhood, knock on doors. We could find 10 to 20 people that are already consuming nutritional supplements and get half of them to buy the product. Is that fair? Well, what if you could get 10 other people to get 10 customers? That, at the very bare minimum, at the 5% on the gross, which means you're not the one doing the sales, but everybody else, at the 5% on the gross, it's worth $2,500 a month to you. Now, if you do the sales, it's worth more. Could you figure out a way to get 50 of these devices? So I'm telling you, we've got a system that can help you do it in a matter of months. But 50 of these with 10 customers each, you know, or in this example is 50 with 100, it's $25,000. Now here's the deal. I have been working with healthcare providers for the last 10 to 15 years. That's been my whole focus. And we've done that not because I love working with healthcare providers, but because I wanted a location, because we have a limited number of devices, that could acquire more customers. So for me personally, 10 is a good number. You tell me I have to get 100 customers, no, I can't do it. Right? The amount of pain and time and everything else to do that is too much. But to a doctor, yeah, we can do that in a couple months. Because they have people walking into their clinic every single day asking them what it is I should be taking. And now all of a sudden we plop this device in that office, we can get 100, 200, 300 customers. And we can do it because I've done it multiple times. I got a podiatrist I work with in Las Vegas, started January 4th. By the end of March, he had 142 customers on product. By the end of April, he's like 175. With, I think, 156 of those by the end of April were on subscription. It's doable. It's very doable. That's why I like doctors. But here's the deal. What I think with this is more realistic. Can you build a team and build a system and follow our system so you could end up with maybe 500 of these devices at 10? Or somewhere in between where some get 100 and some get 5, right? Where it gets this mix. Because 500 of these devices with 10 customers each is still the same $25,000 a month. And now you can start playing with these numbers and say, okay, what's possible? What could I do? What locations could I put it in? Could I get 500 of these devices and half of those people all get one doctor? Could do that too. You know, now all of a sudden you start to realize where this could go and how this is going to move out and what this looks like. We've all seen this curve before, right? You got innovators, early adopters, the early majority. This is our version of this curve. We are in the early adopter phase as we roll this out. And what I said before was that this will become ubiquitous. What does that mean? What that means is that at some point in time, we will get enough of these devices out there that will reach a tipping point. And that tipping point will allow us to, will allow us to go viral. You'll start looking at it differently. But everybody who is already taking nutritional supplements, they will start to learn and they will know that they need to know if their supplements are being absorbed, they need to be scanned by this device. And I am going to tell you that the software that backs this device, that every time you scan someone, it will drive them to buy our product. And so what I think the potential is 5 to 10% of the market. It's the law of economics, right? The first mover advantage, people will migrate to what they think is the best value for their money. And if they migrate and they get scanned by this device, at some point in time, I think we can get 5 to 10% of the market. We pay 42.5% commission according to our last annual report. That's what's up for grabs. 42% of that growth. I personally believe there will be new people that join this company that will be brand new, that are hearing about it for the first time now, that will end up with thousands, potentially tens of thousands or more of these devices. Because we're not going to stop with just 100,000 next year. As this goes global, as we go to India, we're going to need millions of these devices. And if every one of them spits off 5, 10, or 15% on the gross, How many you want? That's what this is about. How many devices do you want? Because I personally believe that it is the best business opportunity I've ever had a chance to be a part of. And when I say that wholeheartedly, not because it's the best way or the only way to make money. There are millions of ways to make money. And there are great ways to make money. But they all come with risk. What's the risk here? The risk is your time. The risk is not taking advantage of the opportunity. That's the risk. Because you can't lose it on this. There's no personal guarantees. It's a $300 device. It's a totally different way of looking at it. Okay? This is how these devices are going to roll out. By the end of next month, we'll have 50 of these devices that'll be kind of at-home test units, right? Because we'll have an app to work with it. We got to beta test it. We'll get those out. Then in September, there'll be 300 more that will go to the top team elites of the company, globally. All these numbers are global. And then in November of this year, we will get 7,000 to 10,000. They keep adjusting the numbers, but this Q4 one is now 7,000 to 10,000 that they will come out. And the number one question I get from people is, well, how do I get one of those? You grow. We'll just keep it really simple. You grow your business, you'll get them. You grow your business a lot, you'll get multiple, meaning you and others underneath you will qualify for them. It doesn't need to be more complicated than that. And I can tell you, I guess just reference that with a little story myself. When I started in August of 2002, 4 weeks after I got started, there was a meeting in Salt Lake City, Utah. Now by this point in time, I had started college at 19 credit hours that semester, and I was traveling back and forth from Colorado, and I was trying, and the guy that got me involved, he said, your only job is to get people to that meeting. That's it. That is the whole goal, because you have to be present in that meeting to sign a lease for the first scanners, and they will have papers for the first 1,000 devices that are going to come out. You're going to be in that room. So the whole goal is market share, right? The first 1,000 scanners, that's the definitive market. Here's your market. And he said, how many people are you going to have in that room to get those, because that's going to be your market share. And I had, in 4 weeks, I had 127 people commit to come to that meeting, and I had 75 show up. And of those 75, I got leases for 75 of the first 1,000, and that's how I launched my business. That's where it took off. This is the same thing. The difference is you have 6 months between now and November to start building your business. And you can sit on it, and there will be people in this room that say, you know what, call me when I can just sign up and get one. And that's fine. But I'm telling you right now, we'll have a year's head start on you. And that market share, that gap will be dramatic. And maybe you can out hustle us and outwork us from then on, and maybe you can catch us, maybe you can't. I don't know. But I'm telling you right now, you want as many of those first 7,000 to 10,000 as you can get your hands on. And it doesn't matter if that's 1, is that 10, is that 50, whatever the case may be. That's the only thing that keeps me up at night. How many of those do I get in my group? That's my focus. And I hope that's your focus. And so as you look at that, and as you try to figure this out, the fact is, we want you to get started. We want you to build with us. We need you. We can't legitimize this industry unless we grow. And we've got to grow with a bunch of people. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to ask you to create your own account. So we're going to ask you to get back to whoever invited you to this meeting tonight. Just make it easy on them, right? When you call them back up, say, Gary, I'm in, right? Sometimes they don't know what to say. They kind of hem and haw. Just say, look, I'm in. I've already decided. It's just that easy. And then once you do that, we're going to have you buy this bundle. So we're going to have you 2 things. You're going to sign up as what we call a member, and then you're going to buy this bundle. Why are you going to buy this bundle? because it gets you the products you need to get started, to test out, so you know which ones you like and which ones you want to use. Every one of these I take on a daily basis, so you know, because they work. And so you're going to get started with that, and then we're going to help you find 2 other people that want to do this as well. It's a simple system, guys. At the end of the day, can you get $500 worth of customers? Find 5 to 10 people, and then find 5 people that want to do the same. That's it. That's the whole system. Now the fact is you're going to have to talk to probably 20 people to get 10 customers, and you're probably going to have to talk to 10 people to find 5 that want to do the same thing. But it's doable. And you do that, and then you help those people do the same. Help them get 5 to 10 customers and find 5 people, and you just keep moving that forward. And I promise you, if you do that, you're going to end up with a ton of these prisms, a ton of these devices as you move forward. Okay? The fact is, guys, 15 seconds could change your life. But the could is based on what is it you are going to do about it. And you may be here tonight, you may have listened to everything and be like, that's not for me. That's okay. The first meeting I ever went to, I took my best friend since I was 14 years old. Still great friends. And I walked out of there and I was like on fire, and I was like, that is the greatest thing I've ever seen. And he looked at me and he's like, I don't want to be a salesperson. It's okay. He runs a sales team now for a tech company, but it's okay. But we saw different things. But do yourself a favor and at least get on product. Watch your score improve, see your health improve. But if you see it the way I see it, if you see this as a real estate play and how many of these devices, then you need to get started, and you need to get started now. Because it's all about urgency. There's one thing I've learned through life is that urgency is the one word that's synonymous with wealth. It doesn't matter what industry, but you got to take action. Thank you. Thank you guys for coming tonight.
He's back on a plane to go back home. It's a lot to take in 55 minutes. Let me just say, one of the keys to make all of this work is the value of the product. The product works. The product will get you to a better score. A better score gets you to better health. And if Gary and I, as examples, can attest to that after the length of time that we've been in the business. So we're going to wrap up with a couple of very, very quick testimonials. So I'm going to start with Luvi. So Luvi, if you'll come up. Luvi Leal is a woman who's been successful in real estate and has both English speaking and Spanish speaking success. And Lupi, how long are you going to take right now to do this testimonial?
40 seconds.
What is your limit? 90 seconds.
90 seconds.
Okay.
Oh, thank you, Ed, for inviting me. It's really a pleasure to be here tonight. And before I start, I would like to have everyone give Scott Bennett a round of applause. I mean, thank you, Scott. Everything that he said, I really related to. My background is in real estate, just like Ed said. That's where I spent 30 years of my life. And yes, the number one factor for success is location, right? But I was also very blessed and fortunate to do it when that industry was booming. So I hit the top. I know what success was like. And I was one of those persons that I said, I never want to do any network marketing. And I was invited by almost all of them. But I was not interested. Only for one thing. I had not understood the concept of the leverage. once I knew that 1% of 100 people was better than 100% myself, and I said, Amen. And thank you to my sponsor, because he was the one who put that clear vision in myself. I knew that if I continue selling, and that I learned how to do very well, I was always gonna make money. But if I stopped selling it didn't matter if the house was $1 million, 2, 3 million, 100,000, whatever it was, my income stopped, right? And with leverage, it was a game changer for me. So I had a vision, and this is where I will end it, so I won't get too long there. Yes, my vision, when I joined real estate, like I said, I was very blessed, but I counted with my fingers how many realtors, professional realtors, willing to help our communities were out there. Very few. And I said, I'm going to be one of those. And that's what took me to the top. And when I was introduced to Nu Skin, I looked around and I said, how many Spanish-speaking leaders do I see in this room? There were 7, including myself. And there was about 1,200 people in the room. And I thought, I can very well do exactly the same thing that I did in real estate in Nu Skin. And the rest is history. I'm here forever. I have been with the company 17 years. And Nu Skin is my second home. And it will be forever, because what I enjoyed the most and the best part in this has been being a server, changing lives every day. Not only looking younger and feeling healthier, but becoming wealthier. That to me is priceless. Thank you.